Welcome to LiveDaf, your online Daf Yomi Shir.
Shalom Aleichem, and welcome back to today's Daf Yomi. Horayos Daf Ches. We begin right on top with the word V'shaven. Okay, just a brief refresh. This relates back to yesterday's Daf. We had a machlokes between Rebbe, who says that a Kohen Mashiach, an anointed Kohen, a Kohen God, a leader in his own right. In a way, he's reminiscent to the general public. A similar status. He follows a similar pattern. Because as a leader, he occupies his own niche, so to speak, in terms of his liabilities, which in certain ways corresponds, it matches to the model, the pattern, the parameters, which apply to the general public. So, for instance, regarding other averos other than avodah zarah, serious super sins, things which have a kares potential if done intentionally. If done b'shogeg, typically one would bring a kispa, a seira, a she-goat, a sheep, right? But that's for your ordinary person. A Kohen Mashiach, as a leader, has a different system. He brings a par. He brings the cow. Just like if Klal Yisrael as a whole would sin due to the errant ruling of the Bezdin Hagadol, they bring the par helam davar shel tzibur. Likewise, a Kohen Mashiach, if he rules, he issues a psak for himself and permits forbidden fats and goes and eats it. So he errs on both accounts, intellectually and practically. He'll bring a par. Now, regarding avodah zarah offenses, mistaken avodah zarah offenses, according to Rebbe, there it's different. Simply doing the avodah zarah would trigger the korban, even in the absence of the he'elem davar, forgetfulness of the thing, meaning even if it was not preceded by an erroneous ruling, a mistaken psak, simply by doing, he has to bring the korban. Versus Klal Yisrael, as a nation, only brings that korban if they were misled by the Bezdin. Whereas the Chachamim say, just like by the other averos that carry, the kares potential, we require the helam davar before the shigigas masa, even for the Kohen Mashiach, as discussed yesterday. The same applies to avodah zarah. He'll only bring his korban if the shigigas masa, the act, was preceded by the helam davar, the erroneous ruling on his account. Okay, so that was yesterday's discussion. We continue today on the top line, V'shaven. Now, all agree regarding a different topic, She'ein maybe Asham Tali, that a Kohen Mashiach will never bring a special Asham called an Asham Tali, which one would bring when he's in doubt of whether he committed an offense which carries a kares potential. So Mashiach is exempt of that. Minol, how do we know that's true? The Chsiv, because by the pasuk describing the kapara of the Asham Tali, it states as follows: the Kohen will atone for him, for the fellow who brings the Asham Tali, al shegigase asher shagag, which indicates that the entirety of his deviation relates to the actual act. Ashegase asher shagag, the shgag, the act itself, amounts to the entirety of his deviation, without any additional elements. For instance, mistaken rulings that precipitated helam davar. Al shegase asher shagag. Only that type of person brings an Asham Tali. Rebbe Savar, so Rebbe says, great, that clearly rules out the Kohen Mashiach, whose offense is not limited to just the act. Right? Because pertaining to regular averos, he requires helam davar. So all the Rebbe holds that by avodah zarah, shigas masa, the act itself, suffices, but not respecting other averos. So Rebbe says like this: Rabbi Savar Misha Kol Chete Bishgaga. Asham Tali only applies to a person where, regarding all his averis, they're defined as mistaken acts and acts alone. As opposed to Kohen Mashiach, Shein Kol Chete Bishgaga. You can't say that regarding all his averis, because typically, aside from Avodah Zarah, he requires Ela Behelam Davar. He requires Helam Davar as well. So he's exempt from the Asham Tali system. Ask the Gemara, who says, this formula, that his sin is limited to the actual act, has to apply to all his scenarios, all his various, averis? Perhaps as long as it applies to some, such as Avodah Zarah, which according to Rebbe is limited just to the act, that would be enough to trigger, to obligate him with an Asham Tali. Midi Kol Ksiv, does the pasuk say all? Yeah. Actually, yes, Dimkain, because otherwise, Nichtav Al Shegi Gosei. The pasuk would simply say, V'chipar olav akain Al Shegi Gosei. To tell you that as long as he has some element of Avera, which is defined by the actual act itself, such as Avodah Zarah. Why does the pasuk duplicate itself? Lamali asher shogag, but it says asher shogag. Why does it repeat itself? To highlight that unless, regarding all your averos, they're defined by mistaken acts and only acts, otherwise you're pater from Asham Tali. Hakamash Malan, coming to teach us. Only a fellow who all his sins are defined by the act and act alone. Yotza Mashiach, as opposed to Mashiach, shein kol cheta b'shgaga. It's not so regarding all his averos, it's limited to Avodah Zarah. There we say it's limited by the act itself. Regarding other mitzvahs, he requires more. Elam davar. With the shigas masa, he's elam davar. So he's out of the picture. He doesn't fit the bill. Rabbanan, in similar fashion, Rabbanan rule out the Mashiach from the Asham Tali as well. Mishachata b'shgaga. Pasuk clearly relates to Asham Tali only to a fellow whose chetz is defined by the actual act and act alone. Yotza Mashiach she'en chata b'shgaga, as opposed to Mashiach who never is defined that way. Loi b'beis kechavim v'loi b'shar mitzvahs, not here nor there. Ela b'helam davar im shigas masa. Wherever you go, a Mashiach needs both components, helam davar together with shigas masa. So pretty much they draw the same conclusion as Rabbi, just with a slightly different nuance in terms of how to interpret the pasuk. And therefore the Mashiach is spotted from Asham Tali. Continues the Mishnah. This is actually a Mishnah that we made reference to yesterday as well. We're meant to know that Bezdin will only trigger the par helam davar shel tzibur system if they erroneously ruled on something which carries kares potential to it, if done b'mezid. So in this case, with b'shogeg, they bring a par. And likewise, the Kohen Mashiach follows the same parameters for Kohen Mashiach regarding his own ruling and his own act. And likewise, regarding a sin related to Avodah Zarah, there as well, it only pertains to something which is super serious, an act which would earn a kares if done intentionally, and Meshagig brings a chatas, in which case, if the Bezdin triggered it, if they caused it to be done, they bring a par. Minolan, how do we know that in fact this whole system only applies when there's a kares element to it? The Sanya Rabbi Yom, Nemar kan oleha. We have the word oleha discussed by the par helam davar shel tzibur. V'nemar lahalan oleha. We have the term oleha mentioned elsewhere by Horayos. We make a connection. Mal lahalan, just like over there. Davar says done a kares. V'shigasa chatas. We're speaking about something which carries a kares potential if done b'mezid. And v'shagig chatas. Afkan here as well regarding the par helam davar shel tzibur. It is limited only to the kares chatas equation. Davar shadayne kares, v'shigase chatas. Ashkan tzibur. Okay, that explains. That provides a source for the par of the public. It only comes when there's the kares chatas equation. Mashiach Manon. How do we know regarding the par of the Mashiach that it's limited only to an avera which carries a kares chatas potential? The answer is because by the Mashiach it says la'ashma saham, the pasuk we had yesterday. to connect him, Hari Mashiach, like the Tzibur, right? Mashiach Ketzibur, he follows the same system. What about the Nasi, who's the king, who also brings a special carbon? Actually, he brings a Sa'ir. If he commits a super sin, an Avera that carries Karis, once again, how do we know? It's limited to a Karis situation. Yolef, mitzvahs, mitzvahs. We have another Gzera Shava connecting the words mitzvahs. Ksiv gabe Nasi. By the Nasi it says, V'asa achas, mikol mitzvahs Hashem. And likewise, Ksiv b'korin b'tzibur. By Tzibur it says also, L'oshem mitzvahs, v'asu achas mikol mitzvahs. So we connect Matzibur, just like in terms of the public. The power only comes, Ella, right? Only Davar Shadayne Koris, Vishgase Chatas. Af Nasi, likewise the Nasi will bring his unique carbon only if it's Davar Shadayne Koris, Vishgase Chatas. What about a Yachid? Just a plain Joe, a plain private person who does something wrong, Bishagig. He'll bring his type of carbon, standard, Kisba, Seira. How do we know? It only addresses Kares situations. Amakro, once again, we have the Pasuk, which discusses a Karban Yachid, which is stated right beneath the other ones, right further down in the Psukim, V'im. So we have the Vav, the connector, V'im Nefesh, right? So now the Vav is a connector, V'ilma Tachtin Me'elyan. We learn the Tachtin from the Elyan. The Pasuk downstairs learns from the Pasuk upstairs. And just like upstairs, which speaks about the Nasi, it's limited to Kares. Likewise, the carbon of a Yachid. Okay, so in conclusion, whether it's a carbon of a Yachid, a carbon chatas of a Nasi, of a Mashiach, of a Tzibur, it's always limited to super sins, averes, which have a Kares potential. Likewise, this applies to Avodah Zarah as well. Only if the Bezdin ruled on an aspect of idol worship which carries Kares Chatas, as opposed to, let's say, hugging Avodah Zarah, which is Asr, but doesn't carry Kares potential. Babez Chav Minolan says, how do we know in fact that this formula applies to Avodah Zarah as well? Tanar Rabbanan, we have a price. We find that Avodah Zarah has its own track, right? Its own type of carbon. So how do we know that it follows the same, pattern as the other liabilities? Perhaps the Bezdin will be obligated to bring the par, even if they erroneously ruled on an aspect of idol worship which doesn't have Kares potential. Now, Markan, the answer is we have the Lashon Me'ene over here in Pasuk Shlach, which speaks about Avodah Zarah. Whenever Lahalim we find in back of Vayikra, which discusses other Averes triggered by the Bezdin, we have the Lashon Me'ene, we connect. Ma Lahalim, just like over there. Certainly, it's only Davar Shazai Nikaras, as we just concluded. Afkan here as well, by Avodah Zarah. It follows the same model. They're only bringing a carbon if it's Davar Shazai Nikaras, okay, that establishes the Tzibur, Ashkan Tzibur. So now we know the public is only liable in that case. What about a Yachid, a Nas, Mashiach, a private person, a king, a Mashiach, Menel? How do we know they only bring their carbon? Incidentally, they all bring the same type of carbon, as we discussed yesterday. They bring a Seira. And again, how do we know it only applies to severe involvement, to something which has courage to it? The answer is like this. Because once again, by Avodah Zarah it says, Amakra, Vim Nefesh Achas. If one nefesh covers all types of people, right? It's a generic term which covers echad yachid, a private person, echad nasi, a king, echad mashiach, a kohen gadol, kulam b'chla nefesh achas, and they're all covered by this lashon nefesh achas. And the pasuk, as we noticed, begins with the word vav. Vav is a connector to connect to upstairs. We learn the definition and the context of the pasuk downstairs, the pasuk just mentioned, min elyon, from the pasuk upstairs, which speaks about the public, which we have just established, is limited to a case of kares chatas. Okay, so we have two routes, two avenues to provide a source that the karbanas, liabilities of chatas by Avodah Zarah only applies when there's a kares chatas equation. Sorry, so at this point we only have one. Right? We have one source, which is the Pasuk Aleha, right? Presented by Rebbe. And that established that generally by a par, Herel Dal Shal Tzibur, it requires a Kares potential. And that was sort of the catalyst for Avodah Zarah as well, which drew from there, right? Avodah Zarah went back to Vayikra and sourced his model from the model of the karbanis. Okay, this works well, according to the Shita, which works with that Gzera Shava, that Aleha connects to the other Aleha, and teaches us that only an Isser, like Horayos, which has Kares, triggers this whole system. Elul Rabbanan, but according to Shittas Rabbanan, discussed back in Maseches Yevamis, however, to use the word Aleha for another purpose, and it's unavailable to supply this Gzera Shava and this concept. The Ma'apkilo Aleha Horayos v'Tzaros is coming to teach us other things, Horayos and Tzaros, discussed back in Yevamis. So we're short a source. Dover Shezden Kares Vishgas Echates Benalahu. So according to them, how do they know that in fact Bezdin only brings a carbon when they were involved in a Kares Chata situation? The answer is we have another source as well. Nafkalahu, they learned it with the Masnlei. Rabbi Shimon Levi, as he taught to his son Levrei. We have a pasuk over here by Avodah Zarah. So instead of starting with a source from the other mitzvahs and drawing that over to Avodah Zarah, we start from the other direction. The starting point here is Avodah Zarah, and that's going to be extended and expanded and applied to other averos as well. That only applies to Kares Chata situations. So the pasuk here says, Torah achas yolachem. Torah achas makes reference to the entire Torah. Here on the pasuk of Avodah Zarah. Torah achas yolachem lo yisa b'shkak. V'nefesh hashitasa b'yadrama. And the pasuk clearly speaks about Avodah Zarah, as we're going to see later. So by making reference to Torah, to the entire Torah, here in this pasuk of Avodah Zarah, Torah is implying to us, connect everything to Avodah Zarah. Huksha kol Torah kula lavetz kechavim. Connect the whole Torah to Avodah Zarah. And just like over here in Avodah Zarah, the pasuk is speaking about Avodah Zarah, which generates kares, as the pasuk clearly makes reference to kares. Ma avetz kechavim, just like the avera of Avodah Zarah that we're discussing, is something which is unique in a sense that it has kares, shechayav nazdanik kares, and therefore shigase chatas. Afkan, likewise over here, regarding the rest of the Torah, they only bring a carbon, a par, if it's something super serious, shechayav nazdanik kares, which would generate a kares if done intentionally, ashigasai, there's a chatas. Okay, so we've established ashechan, that a yachid, a nasi, a mashiach, an individual, a king, a mashiach, who are referenced in this pasuk, in this parsha of Avodah Zarah, and likewise by extension, other averis as well, is limited to a kares chata situation. Bein, right, bavetz kechavim, bein b'shar mitzvahs. So we've covered most of our quest. We've established that a yachid, a nasi, a mashiach work with that system. One remaining element to be defined is tzibur. What about the public's liability? How do we know that they too are only liable to the par? In a kares chata situation, yolaf el yimitachte. We learn upstairs from downstairs. Just like downstairs by the yachid, mashiach, and nasi, it's defined by kares chatas. Likewise, the psukim beforehand stated earlier in the parsha of Avodah Zarah, which refer to the rabbim worshipping, that also is limited to kares chatas potential, and by extension other liabilities of other averos as well, because it's all one package. Okay, so we have two sources that this whole system of chatas is limited to a kares chatas situation. Okay, so we have Rebbe's Gzera Shava Aleh Aleh. We have Shimon Levi teaching his son based on the pasuk Torah Achas, etc. Now Rebbe, who sourced it from Aleh, what does he do with this pasuk? Of Rabbi Shimon Levi, why does the Torah in fact connect? Why does the pasuk connect the whole Torah to Avodah Zarah? What's the purpose? Sanya requires it for another drasha, for another halach. You know, we learned back in Masechah Sanhedrin, if an entire city worships an idol, they're considered ir nidachas, they're a condemned city, and they're deserving of a very special, unique, punishment. They get sayif, they get killed by sword. Their possessions are meant to be destroyed, which is something unique to an entire city that sins. But if it's just an individual who sins, sure, he's punished, but on a different scale. He's punished by way of skila. His possessions are unaffected. They go over, to his kids. So it's a whole different track. Now what about, so this is all if they did it b'meisit, intentionally. What if they did it b'shaykik? They unintentionally, unknowingly worshipped an idol. not realizing that it's Asur, etc. So entire city. It's not the Shevet, it's not Klal Yisrael, which of course we know what happens. They bring a par and a sar. But here it's just a city. It's somewhere in between. It's not, on the one hand, it's not just one person, it's not a yachid or several people. It's not, the majority of our nation. It's just a city. So perhaps just like they have a unique punishment if they would do it b'mezid, on the flip side, if it's b'shogeg, perhaps they also bring a unique type of carbon, unlike anybody else. So that was the starting point of this notion, mapikle. So according to Rebbe, he uses that pasuk. Look at the Sanya regarding the topic discussed in the following brayse. Levisha motzinu. Since we find shechilek hakosher bein rabim lichidim, we find that regarding punishment, if done b'mezid, there's a big difference between a rabbim, an entire city who worships, and just individuals. Rabbim b'sayif, the rabbim gets sayif. Umayna aved, and the possessions get destroyed, burnt. Whereas yichidim, just individuals, different punishment. B'skila, they get stoned. Umayna polite, and their possessions remain intact. So just like there is a distinction between them regarding a punishment b'mezid, yochel nachlik b'karbonisem, perhaps we should also differentiate between individuals and the multitudes regarding karbonis, if they worship b'shogeg. Tam leimar, that was the starting point. No, the answer is Torah achas yeh. The Torah achas means it's all one thing. Whether it's individuals or the multitudes, they bring the same carbon. There are no distinctions. Ask the Gemara. Now, you're suggesting something. The rabbin bring their own type of carbon. Can you offer an option? Something which is different than anybody else? In actuality, if you go down the option, the possibilities, there's nothing that's different. You can't find something unique for them. There's nothing to suggest. Maskeflo. So the reason why we don't differentiate between Yachid and Rabbim in terms of the type of carbon brought b'shogeg by Dezara is because of Torah. Torah is not to draw that line, not to make a distinction. But otherwise, had the Torah made a distinction, I would think, we give them their own carbon. Can you offer an option for something unique, unfound anywhere else? For instance, what would they bring that's different? Naisi par. Shall they bring a par? Guess what? That's covered already. Tzibur b'shah mitzvahs to the maisi. Right? The general public, Klal Yisrael, who sins by other averos, they bring a par. That's taken, checked off. What about naisi par lo'ila v'sar l'chatas? Shall we say they bring two carbonis, par and a sar? Well, that's also brought. Tzibur b'vitzkicham with the maisi. Klal Yisrael sins with avodah zarah. They bring a par lo'ila v'sar l'chatas. Checked off. It's done. Taken. Naisi. So, what about a he-goat? Well, a nasi, a king brings that. B'shar mitzvahs to the maisi. He brings it when he violates other averos. Checked off the list. Naisi siro. What about a she-goat? Well, yachad nam yainu karbonai. A regular person who sins with avodah zarah, that's what he brings. There's nothing unique about that. Says the Gemara, Itzrich. No, I still need the pasuk to teach us that we don't differentiate, because I do have an option actually to suggest. Saga that perhaps I would say. Tzibur, sure, the general public who does avodah zarah, they bring two carbonis, right? Ma'isi, they bring a par lo'ila, a sar l'chatas. So, honey, perhaps this city here who does avodah zarah, they'll bring the same carbon, but just the opposite. Naisi ifcha. We'll switch it around to make it unique. Par will be l'chatas, and v'sar will be lo'ila. So there you go. Binami, or you can say, you're right. There are no available carbonis for them. They need to bring something unique, but there's not available. They're stuck without a kapara. So if they need to bring something different, there's no way to accommodate them. So they're stuck. They can't have a carbon. That's what I would think. Kamash Malon comes the pasuk and says no. Whether it's one person or 100 or a city, they all bring the standard carbon for avodah zarah, which is a seira. Says the Gemara. Okay, but this is working with the understanding that these psukim in Pasha Shlach is relating to avodah zarah sins. Now, if you look at the psukim, there isn't even a single mention, a single reference of avodah zarah. How do we know it's talking about idol worship? The Kuli Yalma Miyas, it seems like all are working with the notion that Kik Sivi Hanikroya, these psukim in Shlach, in fact, Vavodas, Kirchov Sivi are relating to avodah zarah. My mashma. Where do you see that it's so? So we have several pshatim. Amar Rabba, V'itema Samseb Shem Alevi. Ramelo Kedi. Kedi was the name of a chacham. Look at the pasuk. Amar Kra. V'chisish Gavulei Sasru. As kol mitzvah seila, you'll sin, you'll err regarding all the mitzvahs. Can we find a mitzvah which is sort of weighted like all the other mitzvahs? There's only one. Ezahi mitzvah. She is shekula, which corresponds to kala mitzvah, like all the mitzvahs. It's the source of all the mitzvahs. Zamuna, believing in Hashem as the one and only Creator and the conductor of the world. So in fact, we find a clear reference in these psukim to Avodah Zarah. The way Rebbe Tana, in the Yeshiva of Rebbe, they explain differently. Amakra, look at the pasuk which says Asher dibar Hashem al Moshe, which indicates that we heard Hashem telling Moshe. We were present when Hashem spoke to Moshe and gave him this instruction. And then the next pasuk, Uksiv, it says Asher tziva Hashem alekechem biyad Moshe. So it was handed to Moshe to relate to us. So, which mitzvah in the Torah? There's only one mitzvah that we actually experienced Hashem telling Moshe Rabbeinu, which was then, explained further by Moshe Rabbeinu to us directly. Which mitzvah? Did we actually experience Hashem telling Moshe, who then turned around and explained it to us? That's only the first two of the Aseres HaDibros. Hashem Elokecha lo yelecha. These are the mitzvahs of Amunah, of Avodah, right? Refraining from Avodah Zarah, Ve'oimos Avis Kechavim, Tanei V'Shmoel. In fact, Anoichi and V'lo yelecha, those two, we heard them directly from Hashem. So that fits well with the way the pasuk relates to it. Asher Dibra Hashem, and then Asher Tziva Hashem Lekechem Ad Moshe. The first part is that we heard Hashem directly speaking to Moshe, which was then explained to us by Moshe Rabbeinu as well. Did Rabbi Shmuel Tana, we have a third a source that in fact these psukim relate to Avodah Zarah, because in the beginning of that parsha it says, well, these are the mitzvah. This is the mitzvah L'minayoyim Asher Tziva Hashem V'Hol Dereseichem. This mitzvah was the first and is meant to carry over all throughout your generations. So which mitzvah, in fact, was presented first to us? Ezohi mitzvah she'inamar batchila, which mitzvah was related first, beginning of the Aseres HaDibros. Right? Because the Anoichi Hashem Elokecha and Lo Yelecha are the first two of the Ten Commandments. V'amamar says the Gemara, what do you mean? They were the first mitzvahs. We have 10 mitzvahs which were actually given to us before Har Sinai, back in Mara, a place called Mara. Eser mitzvahs in Stav Yisrael b'Mara. Which means that you're going to adhere to the mitzvahs that you're already given. And the 10, by the way, are the 7 mitzvahs b'nei Noach, plus Shabbos, Paraduma, and Kibbutz B'Aim. So, they preceded the Aseres HaDibros. Ella says the Gemara, okay, we'll set aside this pshat and stick with the first two. Machavarta, the clarity indicates the true pshat is in line with the first two, because the Shanim Mikar, the first two pshatim, said earlier. Continues the mission. So the Bezdin misled the crowd, they sinned, and the result is a par halam davar shel tzibur. And as we just explained, it only relates to scenarios which are super serious. Those are averos which contain a kares potential. What about averos which, although perhaps contain kares potential if done b'mezid, but in terms of shogeg, if done unintentionally, they don't have a fixed chatas. They bring actually something which is called a carbon oila v'yored. Oila v'yored, it goes up and down, it fluctuates. It's a flexible carbon depending on his ability to afford. Can bring an animal, or birds, or at the least a carbon mincha, depending on his financial, standing. Says the Mishnah, there's no parahilam davar on those averos. They're different than your standard. They're fluctuating. They're flexible. They go up and down. It occupies a category of it on its own. There's no parahilam davar shel tzibur if the tzibur errs in these matters. Says the Mishnah, ein chayavan al asay. The Bezdin, the Tzibur, will not bring their par if they erred on matters which relate to an asay, a do or a don't do regarding Kedushas HaMikdash. So these are classified as Tumas Migdash or Kedosh. If one is uncareful regarding the sanctity of the Beis HaMikdash, he walks in while he's tummy, or the Karbonis, he eats them while he's tummy. Now regarding the Mikdash, there's an asay. Send away the Tmeim, Bishalchum and Amachne. If they fail to adhere to that, they let the tummy in, or they violate the Leis Asay. Leis Asay means don't come in. Don't be Matami the Beis HaMikdash. So in any case, if they're less than careful in these matters, and it was precipitated by a Hirah of the Bezdin, so unlike other Averes which would trigger a par, not in these cases. And likewise, what else is unique about these Averes that carry a Korban Oil of Yerd? Vein Mivin Asham Tali. Al Asay Val Leis Asay Mikdash, and likewise, an Asham Tali which one would bring if he committed something super serious, but he's in doubt whether he did it. He brings an Asham Tali, but not regarding these matters which have a Korban Oil of Yerd. Avol Chayav Al Asay Val Leis Asay Banida, but a par can be brought if the Bezdin and subsequently the Tzibur erred on matters which relate to an Asay, a do, or a don't do regarding an Isha Nida. So the Asay is keep away when the period is expected. Lo say don't get near an Isha who is a Nida. Right? So if they err in these matters, which carry Curry's potential, of course, if done b'mezid. So yeah, since these are different, because these have a chatas kvua, if done b'shogeg, they require a fixed chatas, so they qualify for a par helam davar shel tzibur. And likewise, umavim, asham tali, al asay, v'alisay shebenida, and if one errs in these matters of nida, and he's unsure, he brings a asham tali. What's an example of a mitzvah to say regarding a nida? Proishim na nida. Right? Rashi says near the shas vest, when the vest is expected, when the period is expected, keep away. So it's a mitzvah to say, vizartem, keep away. He can't have relations with a nida during this juncture. And if she in fact turns discover that she's a nida, and it turns out that he interacted with her during that status, that's a severe sin which carries kares, which carries chatas, which carries Hashem Tali. Mitzvah say, what's an example of a leisa regarding a nida? Al tavel, don't interact with a nida once she has reached that status. Okay, so in a nutshell, par helam davar shel tzibur, likewise, an Hashem Tali only applies to averes which carries kares and fixed chatas potential, but not things which are oil of yerid. But not normally, how do we know this is true? That number one, the tzibur lo mechayv b'karban ba'alma, that a tzibur who sins in these matters don't bring a carbon at all. V'yachad Hashem Tali and an individual would not bring Hashem Tali regarding these matters, unless it carries kares and fixed chatos potential as opposed to fluctuating chatos potential. Omar B'tzal Baravdim. Nemar, we have a three-way Gzeiro Shabbat to teach us both concepts. Nemar v'ashem. We have the phrase v'ashem, b'chatos, stated regarding an individual's chatos. And likewise, we have the word v'ashem, v'ashem tali as well. By the pasuk of Ashem tali, we have the word v'ashem. V'nemar v'ashmu b'tzibur. We have the lashon v'ashmu, very similar word, by the par helam davar shel tzibur. We make a three-way connection. And the starting point is the chata savay yachid. Ma v'ashem b'yachid, just like the word v'ashem regarding the chatas yachid relates to a fixed chatas, right? B'chatas kvua. That's what the pasuk is speaking about. Likewise, by extension, af v'ashmu b'tzibur, the word v'ashmu relating to the carbon of the tzibur is limited b'chatas kvua only in a scenario which has a chatas kvua potential, as opposed to a carbon oil of yerid. And now we take that and extend it over to Hashem Tali. V'ma tzibur, and just like by the tzibur, the carbon is only brought b'chatas kvua, when it's a chatas kvua situation of Hashem Tali. Likewise, but Hashem Tali is only meant to address a safek avero which has a chatas kvua potential. Nami ein bo al safek chatas kvua, as opposed to tumas migdash u'kedashav, which have their own track, carbon oil of yerid. Amris, the Gemara is a kasha on this source. Yachi carbon oil of yerid nami. Why don't we say that Hashem Tali applies even to a situation where he's in doubt of whether he committed something which carries Oila V'Yered. Why? Haksiv, because by the Oila V'Yered it also has a similar phrase. Haksiv V'Hayaki Yasham Lachas Meila. So there you go. Yasham is very similar to the other ones. Says the Gemara, but slightly different, and therefore it doesn't qualify. Done in Ashem and Ashmu, and done in Ashem and Yasham. We learn Ashem Tali where it says Ashem from Karban Tzibur where it says Ashmu, as opposed to Karban Oila V'Yered where it says Yesham, differently spelled, differently pronounced. Says the Gemara, who cares? But the meaning is the same. Yesham means to sin, right? Manaf Kamina. You can still make Gzera Shava even if they're slightly dissimilar in spelling, etc. But Tanu B'Shmal, we have a Brisa. You can do that. Tanu B'Shmal. B'Shava Kohen. This is by the Metzora, the Kohen returned to the house. Then it says Uboa Kohen, he comes into the house. So even though they're spelled differently, but they mean the same thing. It means to say he returns to the house and you connect the two psukim with the Gzera Shava, despite their spelling differences. Zohi Shiva, Zohi Bia, it means the same thing. Returning, coming, it's all the same thing. So here as well, as long as the meaning is similar, that's enough to make a connection. Furthermore, let's learn the halacha, the parameter of the Asham Tali, min va'ashem, from a word which is exactly the same, va'ashem, which is stated by Tumas Mikdash HaKadosh, it says there, v'utami va'ashem. There you go, same spelling, the same, right? Says the Gemara, okay, we have to slightly tweak our source. Amar Papa. Done it. In fact, we're going to connect Asham Tali where it says Va'ashem. And also, in addition to Va'ashem, it says Mitzvah Yis Hashem. So we have two phrases. We have to find another which has two phrases. We learned it from Helam Davar Shal Tzibur, which also has both phrases, Va'ashem or Mitzvah Yis Hashem. And just like over there, it's limited to a chatos kvua as opposed to Oila V'Yered. Asham Tali as well only addresses a case which has kares chatos kvua potential as opposed to Oila V'Yered. Amulev Simbar Ashla Papa, hold it. V'neilaf V'Ashem, V'nesias Avain, V'Ashem, V'nesias Avain. Why don't you go a bit different? Take the Asham Tali, which has the phrases V'Ashem and the phrase V'nesias Avain. From Oila V'Yered, where it also features both phrases V'Ashem, V'nesias Avain. So you can connect the two and obligate Asham Tali. In a case of Oila V'Yered. Ella, Amar, Rav Nachmar Yitzchak, let me explain it to you. It has to match on three accounts. And then it sort of closes up this topic. Because done, we're going to, in fact, draw and connect and compare the Asham Tali, which features three phrases which are unique. V'Ashem, Mitzvah Hashem, and Ashaloi Te'asena. Where else does it have all three phrases? By the Karban Tzibur. Min V'Ashem, U'Mitzvah Hashem, Ashaloi Te'asena. And just like by Karban Tzibur, they're exempt if it's Oila V'Yered. Likewise, Asham Tali is exempt by Oila V'Yered. While Yechiach, and you can't look elsewhere. You can't attempt to connect to the Karban Oila V'Yered, which doesn't have all three phrases mentioned. Don't disprove from the Shmias Koil. These are all types of sins which trigger Oila V'Yered. So Shmias Koil means there was an oath imposed on him to come and offer testimony, which he refused, which he denied. Ubitis Vasayim, if one neglects an oath. V'tumas Mikdash HaKadosh, he disregards the Kedushas HaMikdash. So in those scenarios which trigger Oila V'Yered, there's no mentioning of all three phrases. Okay, so it doesn't qualify. So that leaves us with the Asham Tali connecting to the Karban Tzibur, which, as we said, is limited to cases which have kares and chatos kvu potential, as opposed to Karban Oila V'Yered, and hence there's no Asham Tali by Oila V'Yered as well. Okay, so let's summarize today's daf. We spoke about the Kohen Mashiach. We started with the Kohen Mashiach. He will not bring an Asham Tali. We discussed the requirement of the Kares Chatos potential regarding the Paralam Davashal Tzibur, regarding all types of Chatois. Paralam Davashal Tzibur, the Karban of a Yachad, the Karban of a Nasi, the Karban of Mashiach. That applies to other Averis, and likewise Tavei Zara as well, by way of the connection. We had two sources, whether we started from other Averis and drew that over to Tavei Zara, or vice versa. We proved that in fact those psukim speak about Avodah Zarah. by delving and analyzing into the psukim and the lashonis, which indicated that it's speaking about a Zara, and we concluded with the Mishnah and the Gemara, speaking about Tumas Mikdash Kedoshim, which brings a carbon olav yered, parallel Davar Shal Tzibur, and likewise Asham Tali will not apply in those scenarios. All the best to you and Hatzlachah.